name's Gavin, and this is Genre Books, and it's another tag, and this is one I had to go and look up some biscuits, because this is the Girl Scout cookie tag. I was kindly tagged by Book Chat with Pat, and she was right in her assumption that I would not know the first thing about Girl Scout cookies. And I thought to help anyone in the UK who might struggle with this tag, I will try to find the corresponding biscuit to the Girl Scout cookie. Prompt number 1, Trefoils, a classic novel you love. Well, I'm going to say, I think rich tea would be the corresponding biscuit, but to answer the prompt, I'm going to go for Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, a book I read an awful long time ago now, but one that has stuck with me through its scope and its humour, and I think probably one of the best heroines that I've read in classic literature, in the shape of Becky Sharp. Prompt number 2, Lemon Ups, a book you find inspiring. I didn't understand why a cookie or a biscuit could be inspiring, other than perhaps Proust and his Madeleines. So I had to look at what a lemon up was, and it has inspiring quotes imprinted on the biscuit, which I find just the most unappetizing thing ever. I can't think of a biscuit that has any inspiring quotes or thoughts on it. I suppose maybe if Nice biscuits, you read them as nice, then, there's a little compliment there. But inspiring books, I talk about this book all the time, but I do love it. So this must be, at least proof positive that it is an inspiration. And that is Fictions by Jorge Luis Borges. It's just some of the stories in here. I mean, if people know about Borges, then they know that this is the book. This has Toulon, Uqbar and Orbis Tertius, the Circular Ruins, the Babylon Lottery, the Library of Babel, the Garden of Forking Paths, Death and the Compass, Funes de Memorias. It's just, for a slim book, absolutely chock-a-block with loveliness. And it's a book that inspires me to want to keep reading books apart from anything else. Something that has been inspiring me recently, which is good because I've committed to reading all of it, is Planet Stories. They may not always be the best literature you've ever read, but the brio with which they're written, the love with which they're put together, the reaction they get from their audience, I just find the whole idea of this inspiring. This is only one pulp out of a plethora of pulp titles, and as such it's pretty much a random pick. I just think for exuberance, fun, adventure, it's hard to beat. S'mores is prompt 3, a comforting book, the Bourbon Biscuit. As usual, I've got more than one answer to this question, and the books I take comfort from to begin with are the books that I've not read. Exhibit A, when I finish a book, it normally goes either in a garage or for sale, so most of what is here, I'd say a good 80%, is stuff that is unknown to me at the moment. Now, I think I've chosen well, and I think I'm going to enjoy everything, and it's a great comfort to know that it's all there ready for me. But for books that I have read, and indeed some of the series I've not read, so that I will be able to dip back into this whilst reading something new, is the Discworld series from Terry Pratchett. Comforting because it is all within the same constructed world. Comforting because it is put together by an inventive sensibility that really gets the ridiculousness of the human situation. Comforting because there are always returning characters, comforting because I know that I'm going to enjoy myself whilst I read it. So yes, the Discworld series. Prompt number 4, Adventurfuls or Adventurfuls, an adventurous book. I don't know what would be an equivalent biscuit. I do know what a Samoa is, and I thought it was just something that was some digestives stuck together with marshmallow, but I couldn't describe the digestive biscuit as adventurous. So I'm going to go for the Garibaldi. And for books, this is an opportune moment to talk about adventurous books, because we are in the second week of spring into adventure, a BookTube reading event. So I won't talk to you about the latest adventurous books I've read, although I'll mention there were Cup of Gold by John Steinbeck, which was about pirates, which I was not expecting from John Steinbeck, and The Lost World from Arthur Conan Doyle, a great boys' own adventure that just left me with a grin on my face when I closed the book. For favourite adventure books, maybe The Three Musketeers. That's just absolute fun and swashbuckling silliness. For adventure books I've read more recently, BookTube has got me into reading westerns. The Sackett's series by Louis L'Amour. I've not read many of them yet. Sackett's Land is the first one, which was mostly good, but I think The Warrior's Path or To the Far Blue Mountains are much more adventurous in scope. I think it's because at that point you've got to that frontier. It's got me looking forward to June, where I can continue that series and read some more different types of westerns in June on the range, but not before I've spent 2 months reading adventure books as part of Spring into Adventure. Prompt number 5, Samoas, a book that blends 2 or more genres. Now, I don't understand how you can be selling biscuits, one of which is called s'mores and one that's just called Samoas. That just sounds like you're asking for trouble when you're trying to order those over the phone. And what biscuit blends 2 or more genres? Maybe the chocolate hobnob, which blends the silky smooth chocolate experience of many a biscuit with the rough, bucolic, agricultural topside that the hobnob brings to the party. And yes, I said topside. Do not eat a hobnob with the chocolate on the top. You eat a hobnob with the chocolate on the bottom. Therefore the chocolate goes on your tongue rather than the rough oatiness. Same for digestives. Same for any chocolate biscuit. Why would you have the chocolate at the top of the roof of your mouth? You need the chocolate on your tongue. That's been a public service announcement. I think a lot of the books that I read blend 2 genres together. I mean, although I enjoy a hard sci-fi as much as the next person, a bit of a sci-fi fantasy is just as enjoyable. A fantasy historical is enjoyable. A historical adventure, a sci-fi western, a fantasy thriller. But there are 2 books that I've read recently, or in the last year or so, which blend genres very nicely. One is Queen Victoria's Bomb by Ronald Clark, which is a science fiction fantasy story that reads almost as an alternate history book, and is a book that says a lot of things about war, about colonialism, whilst it revels in its very steampunk world building. And another book would be Blood Music by Greg Bear, which is science fiction and horror in equal measure. I won't say much about it because I think you would give a lot away by saying not a lot, but it's something I'd recommend to anyone from either the sci-fi or the horror genres. Prompt number 6, Do-Si-Dos, a book you hate that everyone seems to love, or a book you love that everyone seems to hate. So for the first of those, The Pink Wafer. For the second, The Danish Butter Cookie. You don't see those about nearly as much as you ought to. Now this is more of a difficult question to answer because I don't hate many books. If I permit myself the occasional moment of iconoclasm, it's that I will reject reading a book that everyone else seems to be reading. That's I think that usually stands me in good stead, because I don't want to be attracted by the latest shiny thing. If it's a good book, people are still going to be talking about it in 5 or 10 years' time, at which point I might come round to the idea of reading it. But I don't hate those books, nor am I big-headed enough to think that I'm the only person that has discovered or rediscovered certain authors or books. But I do find myself reading stuff which has fallen out of fashion, if not out of favour. So last year I ended up reading The Moon Pool and The Metal Monster from A. Merritt, who was a very famous American writer at the turn of the last century, a very famous writer in general, not just for fiction. Someone sort of so famous that he had his own pulp magazine dedicated to his works. I don't think anybody hates him. He's just been quietly left behind. You can take again the example of the pulp writers from Planet Stories, or whatever pulp magazine you want to recall. These aren't writers that I might like, that other people hate. They are just writers that are not even registering on people's radar any longer. There is a difference there between the writers who never did make it and deserve to have a light shone on their work, and those writers that did make it at the time and are no longer part of the conversation. I don't think this is necessarily narrowed down to forgotten writers either. I think writers who you will know the name of aren't talked about as much as they used to be. Certainly some American writers of the mid-20th century, if you think of something like John Dos Passos, who was a fairly well-established and regarded writer, or any beat writer who isn't Kerouac or Ginsberg. And those are just the writers that I know about. There will be other writers that I know nothing about who also deserve more recognition. I think basically what I'm saying is I would like nothing else to do for the rest of my time than to sit there reading books. Prompt 7. Thin Mints, one of your all-time favourite books, The Custard Cream. Also, the New York Trilogy by Paul Auster. It's been a while since I've read this book, but the impact that it had on me when I first read it, almost like a sense of vertigo. It's a book I still recommend to people. It's a book that took that sort of playful postmodern meta-fictional aspect and turned it into an awful existential question. But there you are, there's another book really that people don't seem to talk about much these days, and I think they should. So maybe this tag should just be a rant of why aren't you all reading this, that and the other. So it's a good thing the tags stop here and we're left with the final prompt, Tagalongs. And I've run out of biscuit analogies, so I'm just going to say Jammy Dodger. I would also say that if you're an American in the UK and you are missing your Girl Scout cookies, you can buy them from any US airbase which is on UK soil. So fill your boots. But I'm going to tag some non-US people who may know as little about the Girl Scout cookies as I do. So you are tagged Back Away from the Donkey, Obscure Book Adventures, Roy Reads Anything, and Aaron Read a Book. And I'll be back with something soon.